It's week 16. It's the home finale for the Carolina Panthers, and they're looking to play spoiler as the Cardinals still have an opportunity to not just win the division, but maybe sneak in as a wild card into playoffs. It's the Locked On NFL crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On NFL crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, sir. Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers and Locked On Cardinals podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can check out all Panthers and Cardinals coverage every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Hell, we're here on Saturdays and Sundays too. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. I'm Julian, the host of Locked On Panthers. He is Alex Clancy, the host of Locked On Cardinals, and is yet another crossover Thursday here on Locked On NFL, presented by our friends over at Prize Picks. Download the app and use code Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. 3-11 Carolina Panthers welcoming in the 7-7 Arizona Cardinals for their home finale. A Cardinals team that's still there for the NFC West title and possibly can sneak in as a wild card if Washington, the Commanders, fall apart in the last couple of weeks. Alex, how are we feeling, man, about this Cardinals team that we were coming on before we came on here? You were saying up and down season, not sure how to feel about it. How are you feeling about this team 15 weeks into the season with 3 games left and still in position to win the division and maybe go to the playoffs?
I don't know, Julian. I don't like, here's the thing. Usually good or bad. Yeah. 15 weeks in, you know what the hell you're watching every week. You know what to expect for the most part. Not this year with the Cardinals. Like, yes, the floor has risen from where they were during the Cliff Kingsbury era and obviously last year with Kyler Murray out for the majority of the season. Things are moving in the right direction. But the surprise of the year is the defense seems to be ahead of the offense in many respects every week. And that is a pause for concern, also a pause for celebration. And I don't know how to feel every week when the Cardinals win in myriad ways with myriad different strengths. It's been a Travis mockery of a year. You know, it's just one of those things where it's like, you don't know what you're going to see, but you do know it's a better product than what we've seen for, the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I'm actually happy to talk to you because I don't imagine you pay much attention to the Panthers. I don't imagine, like, most Panther people like me pay attention to what's going on out in Arizona, especially like I'm doing post-game stuff when you have the first half of your game. So by the time I'm even turning on the 4:00 games, I'm going to see like what's the main game, and it's rare that we even get Cardinals games. So I have not really known much about this team this season, and I look up, it's like week 12, what's going on out there in the desert? They're winning the division right now. And I understand the 49ers, they've had their injury issues. The Rams had some issues early on. Seattle has just been mid, but they're right there, also in contention. Looking at Jonathan Gannon, year 2, he didn't have Kyler Murray year 1. Like, are people, at least you, are you feeling good about what he's going to do there long-term? Because it certainly, as you mentioned, feels like from this outside perspective, a major upgrade over Cliff Kingsbury, who coincidentally enough, people are linking the jobs in the NFL this upcoming coaching cycle, which is insane.
They'll learn. Yes, it's been a massive uptick. And it started week 1 of last year when the Cardinals went on the road to Washington and almost pulled out a win with a quarterback that had been with the team for less than 2 weeks in Josh Dobbs. It's preparation, man. Like, it's guys who are playing hard, guys who are on the same page. It doesn't matter what the talent level is. It is either there or it's not. And it's been there since day one. You know very well, Julian, you've been around sports a long time, man. Like, when you saw D'Amico Ryans on the sidelines in San Francisco, you're like, that's a head coach. It hasn't happened yet, but he's a head coach. Jonathan Gannon, I didn't know week 1 preseason last year, that's a head coach. You can just tell. There's an aura around guys who can handle the job right out the gate, regardless of what situation they're jumping in. And we saw that from Jonathan Gannon right away. It hasn't been perfect. He's been super conservative at times. We've seen that a lot with defensive-minded coaches, especially first- and second-year guys. And the one thing, the redeeming quality from him every week is he's a real person. He answers questions with the media. He takes accountability. He does everything, the little things that a football, like, savant, scouting background, total nerd. Like, he got made fun of with the bus and the gut and all that stuff with the clip when he got hired. It's like the dude has these guys prepared. They love him. They'll run through a wall with him. And that defense is going to be potentially a top 5 defense next year, which is what you want from a defensive head coach.
Yeah, and it's so quick that we forget how good of a defensive coach or offensive coach guys can be just based off of 1 year in obscurity, like he had to go through last year with Kyler Murray not being out there. And of course, just being the Cardinals, Panthers, same case. Like not everybody's paying attention to what's going on in Arizona, what's going on in Charlotte with these two franchises. And obviously, from listening to you and just even looking at the numbers, this has been a dynamic defense this season. And yeah, that clip had me worried, bro. I was looking at it like, man, big Kendall Roy vibes here for folks that watch Succession on HBO. I was like, yeah, it's not it. Because he basically like, just want to come in here and say, what's up? I was like, no, timeout, red flag. No, but it turns out he's all right. And the Cardinals seem to be all right as long as Kyler Murray's out there on the field. And I was talking last week to Marcus Mosier of Locked On Cowboys. Cowboy fans like to be funny and act as if Cooper Rush, who did throw 3 tutties on the Panthers last week, is some sort of franchise quarterback, but they suck when they don't have Dak. And the Cardinals, well, they sucked when they didn't have Kyler Murray. What's Kyler done this season? Like, how do you feel about him moving forward, like as the franchise?
Jules, that's the biggest question that fans specifically are like, when Cliff Kingsbury was here, people had sides picked. When Kyler Murray got drafted number 1 overall, when it could have been Nick Bosa, it could have been Quinnen Williams, it could have been a bunch of other guys, people chose then what they felt about Kyler Murray. And I think It's pretty evident. And it's not because he wanted to go play baseball first, and it's not because Cliff Kingsbury had Patrick Mahomes in college, whatever it was. It's very difficult to choose a different path when you think about how you think about Kyler Murray if you thought about that right out the gate. What Kyler Murray has done is shown, even during his low times, that he's a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. What I implore people to look at is how much bad crap box QB play there is in the NFL. And it's not like just kind of bad. It's like that guy shouldn't be quarterbacking for an NFL team right now, but that's how difficult this job is. And with him, while it's not a reason to keep the dude, it's also to put in perspective. If they put Kyler Murray up for trade, if they put him on the block tomorrow, 18 other teams, what do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want? So that's kind of the dichotomy you're facing here is like he's looked bad at times this year, like bad. He threw a pick 6 against Seattle that lost him the game on the road a couple weeks ago. Last week, he did this little flipsy doodle pass when he was going down. He got intercepted, but luckily he got hit in the head, I guess luckily, and they called roughing the passer. But that's something you can't unsee. With that, he's one of the most electric players in the NFL when everything's going. And that's something that you can't say about other quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, it's so difficult. And that's why you take the good, you take the bad with the good, you move the hell on, and you hope that he's never a reason why you lose games. And by and large, this year, he hasn't been. So I think that's a win.
Yeah, it's so interesting, too, you bring that up. If he was available, how many teams would be going after him? And as Carolina has continuously gone through their quarterback carousel of Sam Darnold, who, looked pretty good now in Minnesota. Yeah. And I wasn't a fan of that from the beginning, and things weren't great for him, but he didn't play well. So you kind of got to move on. Then Baker Mayfield, obviously that didn't work out. I also never believed that was set up for success anyways. And then now looking at Bryce Young, like Kyler Murray, that might have been somebody that the Panthers should have been interested in at some point in time. And I don't know if 100%, and I'm sure you're never going to get 100% of the fan base behind it. I don't know what the percentage would have been had he potentially been someone Carolina could have gone after. But obviously, he helps them win games in Arizona. And when he's not out there, they don't really have a shot in hell. And it feels like the Panthers recently, when they played the Cardinals, haven't really seen him, because 2 years ago in 2022, they've had to go against Colt McCoy. I think 21 might have been the last time. If not, then 2020, last time Kyler Murray actually played against Carolina. Obviously, completely different coaching staff, completely different players on the defensive side of the ball than to go up against them on Sunday. But should be an interesting matchup against Kyler Murray, a rushing attack that where Carolina has been terrible against the run so far this season. So that's the Cardinals side of things. So right there in the thick of it, Alex is a little up and down as far as how he feels about this team. But if they win these next 3 games, bet you're going to be feeling really good about this team moving forward. So we'll talk more about the Panthers side of things in just a moment. I'm Julian, host of Locked On Panthers. He is Alex Clancy, the host of Locked On Cardinals. It's a Locked On NFL crossover Thursday. We'll be back here in just a moment. It's that time of the year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports' coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern. Leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers looked to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses. Here are just a few of the courses available. Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register, hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Back here on this Locked On NFL crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Cardinals. I'm Julian, the host of Locked On Panthers. He is Alex Clancy, the host of Locked On Cardinals. Follow him on Twitter or X, if you want to call it that too. It doesn't matter. Twitter.com, X.com, both pop up the same website. He's at Clancy's Corner, and I'm at Julian Council. Okay, we talked about the Cardinal side of things. Talked about the Panther side of things, Alex, as they're looking to play spoiler. They looked good for 5 weeks there. Bryce Young looked really good. And then he turned the ball over 4 times against Dallas. Their run defense couldn't stop Dallas, and they get embarrassed by a bad Cowboys team. I don't know if you were concerned about this game before you saw the game on Sunday, but what is your thoughts about what Carolina's been able to do over the last month and a half as Bryce Young has actually looked like someone who could maybe be an NFL quarterback moving forward?
Yeah, it's interesting. First off, out the gate, there are just some skeletons in the Arizona Cardinals closet when the Carolina Panthers blue was on the other side. If we're talking NFC Championship game where the Cardinals got embarrassed, or the last time I believe they were in Carolina, Budda Baker missed that game, if my memory serves me, in 2020, and the Cardinals lost that game. Going cross country to play any NFL team's a difficult matchup. It just is. Early morning window, things like that, where it's not, perfect in Arizona. For me, the biggest question marks I have surrounding the Cardinals and the ability to win is, how good has Chuba Hubbard really been? Like, I have him on my fantasy football team, picked him up after week 1. I know how he's been by the numbers. How has he been as the heartbeat of this offense so far through 16 weeks? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think he's had a really good season. This is a dude who was drafted in the 4th round out of Oklahoma State, got his opportunity as a rookie when McCaffrey went down, and he was fine then. Year 2, after they traded McCaffrey, it was really more Deontay Foreman was the lead back, and Chuba was the second guy, but still helped out. Then midway through last season takes over, and he's really carried over last season's totals to this year, where he's been really good. Like, this is a dude who gets paid the week of the Munich game against the Giants and then has his best career game. How often do you see dudes go out there and have a career day after getting paid? Like, most of the time, they kind of just mail it in because you got your money, especially as a running back. Hell, y'all barely get paid, so why even keep trying? But the thing about it is, he's not going to be the reason why they win or lose games. Now, he was a couple weeks ago when they fumbled that football, when he fumbled the ball, when they could have beaten the Buccaneers in overtime. Now, I contend that game should have never gone to overtime. They dominated Tampa for 3 quarters, and they had the lead with 30 seconds left. Maybe get a stop on defense. So I think he's been good. But when we had McCaffrey here in Carolina, it wasn't like they won games with him. He had a 1,000 season. They went 5-11. Why do you win games? Because you went up front, which they don't do defensively, and you have a good quarterback, which the quarterback play has not been great. I gave it a D during the bye week. It's been better since then, but still that has not resulted in wins because, well, they have a lot of other issues across the board. Defensively can't stop anybody on the ground. Some questions in the secondary as well. Receivers dropping the ball. Your good running back fumbling the ball, fumbling the game away. So I think he's been good. It's just like he's not going to be the reason the Panthers win. He may be the reason they lose if he fumbles, but that's kind of been my thoughts. And I think he's somebody worth keeping around and will be somebody they continue to build around next couple of seasons.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we can't talk about Jonathan Brooks. I mean, you feel terrible for the kid who tore his ACL again before you could actually see the field. That's brutal. But so I kind of see some mirroring with the Cardinals over the last couple of years with Carolina, where the Cardinals last year focused more on certain position groups. They completely punted on the secondary because you can only do so much in one draft. And when you look at Carolina, it's like, okay, they spent a boatload of cheese on the offensive line, traded for Deontay Johnson, paid Chuba Hubbard midseason, and Andy Dalton was playing a good chunk of games. It seems like next year, with the money they have, with the draft capital they have, that you're going to be focusing on the defense next year, right? You're just kind of holding on for dear life that they're going to be good enough to keep you in contention.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have to address the defensive side of the ball next year. I go back to that 2020 draft where they had all 7 of their picks were defensive players. And now was a year where Luke Kuechly left. They watched Mario Addison leave. There was a ton of dudes defensively that left. So it made sense to go all in. I don't know if you needed to go all 7 picks defensively. I don't think that's what they would do this upcoming draft. But the O-line, there's still questions there, like Ike Ekwonu. Can he be your left tackle again next season? He's been fine. Going to last week, they had only given up 22 sacks, which was the 5th least in the NFL. Then the dam broke last week. They gave up 6 against Dallas. And that's what happens when you're in obvious passing situations throughout that second half against that pass rush. Micah Parsons, Ozigazua, they were insane last week in that second half. So the O-line probably going to be fine. I do think they need another, I don't know what they're going to do about Thielen. He's going to be 35 next year. He's been fine this year when he's been healthy. He missed 7 weeks with the hamstring that he suffered in week 3 at Vegas. I would think they would want to get a younger veteran receiver. Like T. Higgins would be nice. I don't know if he wants to come to Carolina, but that's a guy I'm certainly looking at to pair with Jalen Coker, who's been a nice surprise as a UDFA. Xavier Legette, who's not going to play on Sunday and may actually be done for the rest of the year. He's had his issues with drops. Now, he's not saying it's his wrist, but he's going to have wrist surgery after the year. So those are the guys that you want to lean on moving forward, but you got to get some more experience. But yes, defensively, D-line outside of Derek Brown, who's been out since week 1, it's terrible. Guys can't play. Like Ashawn Robinson's fine, but everybody else is horrible. Linebacker, they'll have Jewel back next year. Trevin Wallace, a rookie. He'll be I think he's going to be back this Sunday. They'll be back. Then completely new guys in the secondary aside from J.C. Horn. So there's a lot to be done defensively to even get this to be an average unit, which has not been close to being this season.
Yeah, it's tough, Julian. Again, I see a lot of the same, but if you look at Dave Canales and you look at Bryce Young, and you see Dave Canales wouldn't taken that job to trade Bryce Young, at least not right out the gate. I think that's one of the
You wouldn't think so, but then he benches him after 2 weeks and never says that he planned on going back to him.
One thing I have to say this. I know we're doing crossover. I know Andy Dalton is now kind of an afterthought. Andy Dalton should be able to be hired by any NFL team throughout a year, not be tied to one, just to play for 2 or 3 games, just mentor a young guy, let him watch, and then pump him in. Andy Dalton's one of the greatest humans to ever play in the NFL. Doesn't give a rip. He's like, I'm going to play when I'm asked to. I'm going to sit, and I'm going to pat him on the back, be like, good job, kid. This is what we're doing here. I mean, has Andy Dalton added a lot to the Canales and Bryce Young dynamic, or am I completely overstating from,
No, you're not off base at all. I remember when I was in the locker room there after the game in Germany, and we went up to Andy. He's like, hey, so Dave said that he's still not sure who's going to start next week. And Andy's like, yeah, whatever. That's fine. I can go home. He wasn't bothered by it at all. He's like, yeah, okay. I mean, if I got to play, I'll play. If I don't, I don't. And there was some good reporting. I think it was Jeremy Fowler who talked about how great of a presence that Andy Dalton's actually been for Bryce Young this year when Bryce was sitting. And even now that Bryce is back out there, how he's really taught him how to be a professional. And I think it was a good thing for Bryce to sit back and to see how Andy Dalton conducted himself as the franchise, not even the franchise quarterback, but as quarterback one through the week to week, and how he handled himself in the locker room and some of the things that you have to do as a starting quarterback. Like Bryce, after that game against Kansas City where they barely lost, he had apparently some impassioned locker room speech after the game, something that no one had seen him do. And he had been a very quiet guy. You could see the emotions rookie year, especially early this season as well, get to him where he's playing terrible. It felt like everything is just the world's on his shoulders, where since he's come back, you seem more relaxed, more confident, not just on the field, but off the field in the locker room. And I remember JC Horn saying, this is the thing that we've been wanting to see from this guy. Like, he's starting to be a leader finally. Robert Hunt, the right guard in Carolina, said the same thing about Bryce Young and how he's on the right path. Chuba Hubbard, all these guys have really been on behind him, but what Andy Dalton's done behind the scenes, where we don't necessarily see it on a day-to-day basis, absolutely has been critical, I think, to Bryce Young's turnaround.
Yeah, and one last thing before we pivot here to, past a victory. Can he be the guy?
I hope. That's the thing about me. I've loved this dude since he was at Alabama. Great kid. And you stand in there. Like, I'm 6'1", at 210 right now. I'm bigger than Bryce Young. And that is striking to be just a random citizen and to be in an NFL quarterback. So that's the one thing about it. I was always jarring to me when I first saw him, and even seeing him today. I do think he can play, though. And he has shown that, like last year against Green Bay, like the Packers DC is gone. Like, that was a terrible defense. But the way he played against Kansas City, when Steve Spagnuolo is someone that exposes you if you cannot play, how he's been playing against zone defense and coverages recently where he could not do anything against them earlier on, he has shown that he can help this team win. And I do believe, as of right now, let's see how the next 3 weeks play out, because I'm going to reserve really the main judgment until the end of the season, let things kind of play out after probably being a little bit too absolute earlier on this year, thinking it was done. I do think it should trend towards him being back next year, as when they were playing Tampa close, Philadelphia close, KC close, clearly Bryce Young is not the only issue in Carolina. So he could be the guy. I don't know if he will be the guy. Like, let's get another year of it with Canales, add some more pieces, guys who won't drop the ball when the game's on the line, like we got a couple weeks ago, and then see if he actually can be your leader moving forward. So I'm happy for him. That's turned around. It seems like a lot of people on the outside also are very happy to see Bryce Young the way he's playing, because he was a fun dude to watch in college. So can we see more of Bama Bryce moving forward? That's really the thing that Carolina wants to see, and we'll find out, I guess. But yeah, let's transition to keys to victory, or the 3 things they got to do. I think Carolina's usually got to do about 20-something things in order to win these games. But we'll talk about what 3 things Arizona must do, what 3 things Carolina must do to win this game on Sunday. I'm Julian, host of Locked On Panthers. He's Alex Clancy, host of Locked On Cardinals. It's the Locked On NFL crossover Thursday, and we'll be back here in just a moment. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can place a $5 bet and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And let's go over to FanDuel right now. Looking at it, the Cardinals are staying there steady at 4.5-point favorites on the road against Carolina on Sunday. Cardinals money line -210, Panthers money line +176, and the over-under has stayed right there at 46.5. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You could start with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Back here on this Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday, presented by our friends over at Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. I'm Julian, the host of Locked On Panthers. He is Alex Clancy, the host of Locked On Cardinals. The 3-11 Carolina Panthers facing off against the 7-7 Arizona Cardinals, who right now are 1 game behind the 8-6 Rams and 8-6 Seahawks, 1 game above the 49ers at 6-8. And 2 games behind the Washington Commanders for the last spot in the wild card, as Green Bay is clearly going to go to the playoffs. I don't think anybody's concerned about whether that's going to happen. Minnesota also, they could win the division still. Detroit, with the injuries they got going on. So Detroit and Minnesota with 12 wins are both going to the playoffs. So 1 spot still out there on the line, potentially in the wild card, but I feel like the Commanders got a hold of that. So what Arizona's going to need to do, probably win these last 3 games. And looking at the series history, you brought it up earlier, Alex. Arizona won the last time back in 2022. Oh, actually, no. Wait. Yes. No, that's not true. Why does this say That was a Cam Newton I'm back game. So Carolina won that game. So I'm looking at the Panthers website right now, and they have that as a loss for Carolina. So that's not right. 2021, and that's Carolina winning 34-10, has been winning in 2020, 31-21. Then, oh my God, this game back in 2019, 38-20, Carolina win, which is when everybody announced or anointed Kyle Allen as a franchise, and the most annoying fall I've ever gone through. And I will never forgive the people in this fan base who thought that guy could play. But Carolina's owned Arizona recently, and we'll see if that trend continues. For it to not continue, Alex, what 3 things at minimum should or do the Cardinals need to do on Sunday to win?
The Cardinals need to run the ball effectively against a team that they should be able to run the ball effectively against. That's one. Number 2, the Cardinals need to run the ball effectively against a team that they can run the ball effectively against. And then number 3, I wish that more people knew when I screamed blitz all night what that really means with Remember the Titans. Like, I know you do. They need to eviscerate the left side, predominantly that offensive line, and just make Bryce Young's life a living hell. Like, it's cutting the head off the snake is what I call it, where it's just they need, like, and I know the pass rush for them has been a weak spot would be nice to say about the Cardinals, but what Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis do with the exotic blitz packages that they put together, whether it be, Kazir White and Budda Baker or Garrett Williams and Max Melton, like, they get weird with it. And that's something that they're going to need to do on top of running the ball. And they should win in pseudo-convincing fashion. If they can't run the ball, that's when the question marks come into play.
I love the fact that here we are with a Bill Yost reference on the show. Yost! Better not take my boy out, Yost! You blitz all night. Yeah. Well, I mean, is there any vendetta going on here? Because that's what was happening. And remember the Titans, he was mad. So what's the vendetta over here at Carolina side other than just losing the last couple of games?
I mean, it's everything. It's like, here's the thing. The Cam Newton,
I'm back.
Yeah, it's just, and then Patrick Peterson, and me having to deal with Patrick Peterson saying that he's, CB1, he just gets abused in the NFC Championship game. They lose by 100. It's just like, listen, this is the time where the Panthers should be got. Like, this is one, because listen, what the Panthers have, like 2 less wins than Chicago after that trade?
Yeah. It's not been great for them. Because Bears are 5-8 right now? Yeah. I had somebody walking in while doing the show. That's why I was like, if you saw me waving away. But,
as long as it's not a seizure, we're good. Yeah. So,
I'm all good. But I'm thinking about it because, like, some of these games, for you, before I get to the Panthers, like 3 things off the top of my head. Yeah. The Ryan Lindley game where they had to come in here, face off against a 7-8-1 Carolina Panthers team. Like, does that one bite too? More because I feel like obviously 2015 has to hurt more because you're right there on the cusp. But that was a Panthers team that was 15-1.
Yeah,
losing to a 7-8-1 team. Is that one maybe a little bit more?
No,
I like what the hell?
One. No, okay. I think it's the one because of the relevancy factor. It was Kyler Murray in 2020. I think you mentioned the Teddy Bridgewater game where it's like, Teddy is just going to be an all-world guy from Louisville again. And, it's just something that, the Cardinals are going to have to eat it. Budda Baker did miss that game. I think my memory serves me. And the Cardinals were that was just a Cliff Kingsbury coach game, baby. That's all that was. And it's just like the Cardinals, their roster wasn't great, and they weren't these huge favorites. They may not have been favorites going into that game, but games like that are games that this organization never wins. And this is one where you have an extra little leg up because Carolina's 1 year away from being like, that's why going into Sunday, it's like, just go do what you're supposed to do. They did it against New England this past week. Go do it again on the road and keep your season alive. Because if they don't, we're going to be having weird conversations.
Teddy Bridgewater that day, 26-37, 276 yards, tutty, or 2 of them. 1 interception, 98.5 rating, and the Panthers also ran all over the Cardinals, running for, 100 and I can't find it. They're in for a lot of yards. So, yeah, it's just a weird history these 2 teams have had recently where they're both at the top of the NFC and in Carolina still winning those games. One of them that you would not have thought they would have won as a 7-8-1, but we've seen that NFC South division champion. Not even NFC South, like we had the Marshawn Lynch like earthquake game
Yeah.
when that place almost fell apart. And that's crazy, like how that's all happened. So we've seen it multiple times happen with NFC South and West opponents facing off in the wild card round of the playoffs. But looking at Carolina, it's like pretty simple to me, man. You got to take care of the football this week. You cannot turn it over 4 times. And it's just the NFL. It's football in general. If you turn it over 4 times, you're going to lose. Now, you're going to turn it over 4 times, and you're going to give it 200 yards on the ground, you're going to lose. So it's going to come down to taking care of the football from Bryce Young's perspective, which he has done. Aside from that first start back against Denver where he was thrown in there, hadn't been really getting those first-team reps at the 2 interceptions, he's taking care of the ball. 1 interception against the Saints, that was more on Leggett, not holding on to the football, having it just stripped away from him by the Saints defender. Then Bryce had the pick a couple weeks ago against Philadelphia, not a great throw on that play. But other than that, he had taken care of the ball. Then last week, fumbled twice, throws a couple of picks. Just did not look good, not smart decisions, but there's been a lot of good, and I don't think last week should wash away what he's done. But if it happens again this week, then there's going to be concerns about him moving forward the rest of the season. Really, that decision Carolina has to make heading into 2025, got to stop the run. Arizona's 7th in the NFL right now in rushing yards. James Conner's been good. Kyler Murray won't know what he can do. Panthers' run defense sucks, and it's not ever going to be good this season. I continuously have people ask me, like, how can they get better? It's like, dude, they played 14 games. This is who they are. Like, they're not getting better. Shaq Thompson, blown Achilles. Derek Brown, torn meniscus. They're gone. And even if they were here, I still don't think it's going to be like a top 25 run defense. It's been atrocious. And then you got to capitalize in the red zone. Had a little issues there when they were there last week early on. That was when they had the fumble with Bryce Young. Really find a way to get out early, capitalize in the red zone, score a touchdown there. And then I think that can give them a lot of momentum in this game against a team that is desperate. And Carolina needs to match that desperation against Arizona. So that's really like 6 things, but it's more than 1 or 3 things the Panthers need to do to win this game. So again, lines at 4.5 going into Sunday. How do you feel? Do you feel like this is a game Arizona takes away, or you think it's going to be just another letdown against the Panthers with the Cardinals playing against them?
Yeah, I mean, if I were to put a wager on FanDuel with this, I'd take the money line minus 250 or whatever it would be. I would not be laying points on the road in the morning window in Carolina. Like, weird things happen in the Carolinas and Florida when you go across country and you're a West Coast team. It's like, I'm cautiously optimistic that the Cardinals could take care of business, win by 10 that ends up being a field goal late, something like that. But I don't know, man. Like, they're not a trustworthy team in the ways they need to be trustworthy, which is run the ball whenever. And they played Carolina, really bad run defense a month ago at that time, and they were stymied. I think they ran for less than 50 yards. So it's like they need to be able to take advantage of the weaknesses of opposition, and they've done it at times, but they don't do it frequently enough for me to be like, oh, yeah, book it. James Conner won't play in touch.
Can't trust him. We'll see. I think it's kind of nice to see Arizona actually right there in the thick of things. I have talked about on this show this week, while I always want to see the team win, because I've been doing this since the 2020 season, Alex. The Panthers are 17-59. I've talked about too many losses. So I would prefer they find a way to win the next 3 games. But if they lose out, 3-14 may be good enough to get in the top 2. And if Bryce plays well enough these last 3 weeks and they lose, if the games look a lot like the Eagles games and the Chiefs game and the Bucks game, he can come back next year. They can be in the top 2, and they can find some thirsty-ass team looking for a quarterback and be able to get a lot of compensation, which could help their team. So I would hope they can win. I think they can win. And just based off the recent history, I think you should expect to win if you're a Panthers fan against the Cardinals, which is crazy because you don't expect to beat anybody at this point in time. But should be a fun matchup against the Cardinals team that still has an outside chance of the wild card, but probably more realistic chance to win the NFC West over the next couple of weeks of the season. It's going to wrap up this edition of Locked On Panthers and the Locked On Cardinals podcast. I'm Julian Council, host of Locked On Panthers. He's Alex Clancy, host of Locked On Cardinals. Thanks again to Prize Picks for sponsoring our crossover Thursday. We'll be back on Friday talking more about this game and how the Panthers can play spoiler and the Cardinals can just not do it again.